Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the 3rd season of What If. Today we're going all the way back to book 2, ancient history if you ask some, to visit Coral, Gill, and the Seawing royal family, and we'll be seeing what might have happened if Gill and Coral switched places. We'll be jumping in right about at book 2. Coral was captured instead of Gill, leaving her husband behind to try and hold their kingdom together. When Queen Coral of the Seawings was captured by the Skywings, the Seawing kingdom had been thrown into a panic. While King Gill was still in the palace, Coral's only surviving female dragonette was still just that, a dragonette. But with no other options, Princess Anemone was crowned Queen Anemone of the Seawings, inheriting a kingdom in uproar and an alliance with a dragon whose war she couldn't care less about. Gill tried his best to help his daughter. Anemone was young, and she'd been pushed hard by her mother and Whirlpool to master powers Gill himself thought were far too dangerous. It appeared she shared that opinion, for one of her first acts as queen was to send Whirlpool packing, to one of the farthest Seawing cities. Gill suspected it was less because she feared her own power, and more because she hated Whirlpool, but he found the slimy green sycophant distasteful himself, so he approved. But from there, he did not know what they should do. Gill wanted to withdraw from the war. He'd wanted to for years now, but his wife did not always agree with him, and Princess Blister's voice was an ever-present manipulative whisper in her ear. But on the other Talon, Coral had been captured by another tribe. She could not be dead yet. The Skywings would have announced it if they'd killed her. And as much as it pained him to admit it, Gill knew what type of dragon Scarlet was. She would draw it out, make his queen's death brutal and agonizing. And when the deed was done, she would make sure Gill and Anemone knew. So they had time yet to try and save Coral. But every team they sent either failed to return, or returned to report that they hadn't gotten anywhere close to the Skywing capital. After 3 weeks, Gill had caved, and advised his daughter to agree to Blister's offer of Sandwing spies. As much as he wanted to avoid indebting themselves to the slippery Sandwing, they needed something, some kind of information to go off of, if they wanted any chance of saving Coral. So Blister gave them the spies, 3 of them. The 2 who returned both reported the same thing. Coral had not been seen since her capture, and rumor was Scarlet was trying to find out the location of the Summer Palace from her. One of the Sandwings had even managed to bribe a guard into telling him which prisoners were being kept in places other than the arena, and said the guard had made no mention of the Seawing Queen's whereabouts. Gill and Anemone refocused. They pulled back into the Summer Palace, into the ocean, trying to plan how they might save their queen. Shark continued to assert that while they could attack the Skywing capital head-on, the losses they would sustain in the time needed to even find Coral would be too devastating. There was a reason they hadn't attacked the palace outright, after all. More weeks passed. Shark had the nerve to pull Gill aside one night and tell him that this was making the royal family, the entire tribe, look weak, that they should abandon Coral and throw their support to a new queen. Furious, Gill followed his daughter's example and sent him to the farthest army outpost he knew of, in the deep, dark ocean far from the mainland. It was not until weeks later that the prophecy dragonettes arrived, led to the Summer Palace by Riptide, who'd recognized the Seawings, Gill's daughters, wing patterns. Tsunami was brash and loud, strong, compact, and quicker to fight than talk. Luckily, Gill noted that some of her friends at least seemed to be more level-headed. He tried to keep their arrival quiet. With everything going on, the Sandwing spies had still reported nothing new, but word got to Shark, and he returned to the Summer Palace. Because more than anything, what stood out about Tsunami the most was that she was older than Anemone. Gill wondered if Shark had known when he'd snidely suggested they needed a new queen. But no, he couldn't have. Tsunami had told him the story of their escape, and it was too recent for that to have been the case. It was just Shark's typical nastiness. But he was back now, and quick to remind Gill that Anemone had never fought Coral for the throne, thereby meaning she had no real claim on it, especially not with another challenger of royal blood suddenly on the scene. Gill knew well enough that Tsunami had more claim, technically, to the throne than Anemone did. But realistically, she'd never even been to the Sea Kingdom before, and she and her friends seemed set on their destiny thing. Anemone admitted that she was suspicious of her sister, even as happy as she was to meet her. Gill himself was not. Tsunami clearly had no desire to be queen. If anything, he suspected that once she'd found her way to Blister, she'd be on her merry way. He very much doubted she and her group would like the Sandwing. Chances were they'd be moving on with haste. But that presented another problem. He and his daughter had been avoiding Blister as much as they could without dipping into outright hostility. How to contact her without allowing her to sweet-talk them back into service? The problem was solved, or rather overshadowed in importance, by the message that arrived in the Summer Palace 2 days after the Dragonets of Destiny did. Queen Coral was dead. Killed in arena combat by none other than Tsunami of the Sea Wings, Dragonet of Destiny. It sent Gill reeling. He lost a precious, invaluable day to a grief so raw it ripped at his scales. Too long, it left them vulnerable to the orcas swimming around their pack, waiting to attack the weak ones. He found Tsunami as soon as he could bear to. It looked like Anemone had already broken the news to her. She didn't look... well, she looked regretful, but not sad. She'd never known her mother, Gill thought absently. She didn't know who she should be mourning. Tsunami told him she hadn't known. They'd announced her enemy simply as Coral. Not queen, not of the Sea Wings. A final indignity. Gill had been told the depraved, dehydrated state of his queen. She'd never fought in the arena before, but evidently Scarlet had tired of questioning her, and decided execution was in order. She also told him that she could not be queen, that she didn't want it, and Gill cut off her rant before it could truly get started. He found the will, somehow, to calmly tell her he had no intention of forcing her to be queen. She had already told Anemone the same. Unfortunately, other dragons had different opinions. Shark insisted, furiously, that Tsunami be crowned queen. Gill's day of mourning had doomed him, he thought morosely. The Orca pack was circling closer. Despite Tsunami's own insistence that once they met Blister they would be leaving one way or another, Shark stood firm. Gill knew their kingdom's fate hung on the edge of a knife. Shark wasn't king, but he had many supporters, and Gill wouldn't put it past him to try and start a civil war that would get Anemone and Gill out of his way. The situation grew more and more tense for days, until Gill thought it couldn't get any worse. And then it did. Blister had arrived. She had found out, somehow, and Gill had his suspicions how, that the Dragonets of Destiny were at the Summer Palace, and Blister wanted to see them for herself. That went about as well as expected. Gill was proud to see Tsunami hated Blister as much as he did, pretty much immediately. He was even more proud that she managed not to react and cause, say, Blister's entire army to turn on them, holding herself back while the princess was at the palace. But the Dragonets, it seemed, did not like Blister any more than they liked Burn, so Gill assumed they would soon be leaving to try and meet the final Sandwing princess. Frankly, he didn't care who they picked. Gill had so many more problems right now. The night after Blister left, Tsunami sought him out. Tsunami and the quiet little Nightwing she traveled with. The Nightwing had come up with a plan. 2 days later, during a council meeting where Shark and most of the other important Sea Wings were present, Tsunami stormed into the throne room, loudly declaring her intent to challenge Anemone for the throne. Gill caught the glint of smug surprise in Shark's expression before he smoothed it over. They left the council room for the duel. Tsunami attacked viciously, looking for all the world like she truly intended to kill her sister and take the throne. Gill schooled his face to be neutral and sat back on his talons, wrapping his tail around his claws and watching. He was not worried. The only way for Anemone to have a stable grip on the throne is if she beats Tsunami, the little Nightwing had said. We have to go, but we don't want anyone like Shark getting control of the Sea Wing army once we're gone. You and me both, little prophecy dragon, Gill thought, watching the fight. By necessity, it was not wholly bloodless. That night, both sisters had agreed that to convince everyone, it must look real. and Tsunami was too large, too old, for anyone to think Anemone could truly beat her. Gill stifled a huff of laughter, thinking of the argument his daughters had gotten caught up in, both holding that they would be the one to win in a real, unstaged fight. Here and now, in this very fake fight, Tsunami appeared to be winning. At least until she flipped Anemone, sending the younger dragonette to the ground roughly. Gill's wings twitched despite himself. That would hurt. Anemone shouted, in seeming desperation, "Enchant these pearls to choke Tsunami." To every other spectator, it looked like Anemone had finally snapped and used her magic, leading her to a quick victory. Gill knew that the long strands of pearls she was wearing were already enchanted, to fly off, bind Tsunami, and wrap around her throat, but not to choke her. The phrase was a carefully planned trigger sentence, outlined by that clever Nightwing dragonette. The hardest part will be getting Tsunami to pretend she's lost a fight. She can't even do that in real life, the dragonette had teased snidely. But Tsunami played the part perfectly. As the jewelry flung itself off Anemone to fly toward her and wrap her tightly, she let out a muffled, furious shout. After a few seconds, she started panting and writhing, acting as if she truly couldn't breathe. In order for the claim to the throne to be absolute, the challenger needed to die. But Tsunami was no ordinary challenger. The only sound in the shocked, silent circle of specters was Tsunami's frantic attempts at breathing. That was until a huge brown dragonette crashed through the crowd, shouting. "Wait," he howled, skidding to a stop near an enemy. "Don't kill her. She's a dragonette of destiny. Without her, we can't fulfill the prophecy. Have mercy on her, great queen." Gill thought. Impressive. But for the one stumble, the Mudwing had played his own part well. Anemone eyed the Mudwing and laid one delicate claw on a snout, pretending to consider. Tsunami gave a particularly artful wheeze next to them. "Fine," Anemone said, archly. "On the condition she admits my victory, and renounces her claim to the throne, I will allow her to live, for the greater good of my tribe and all of Pyria." Anemone removed the spelled pearls, and Tsunami gasped her way through an admission of defeat. Gill saw a hint of a real smirk on Anemone's face, and hid his own. Beside him, Shark was fuming. If he had fire, it'd be spurting out of his nostrils right now, Gill knew. And just like that, Anemone's claim to the throne was cemented, and the Dragonettes of Destiny were free to go. Gill relaxed back, satisfied with this resolution. Shark had no footing to start any kind of trouble now. And since Gill and Anemone had plans to withdraw from the war, he could be packed safely off to a distant outpost to cool off for a few years. Yes, overall it was a satisfactory resolution. And that'll be all. It got to be quite a bit longer than I expected, but I really enjoyed writing this one. I think this is a cool story. What do y'all think? Did you enjoy this What If? Which was your favorite part? If you enjoyed this, check out my older What Ifs and stay tuned for new ones. The best way to make sure you see them is to subscribe, wink wink. Anyways, check the description for links to see more art or buy merch. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.